Hazard pay is back on, baby. The hazard pay provisions of 2020 ignited viewers as Nancy Pelosi proposed up to $10,000 based upon a $13 an hour calculation for the number of hours you worked 2020 January up until 60 days after the pandemic. So will that provision float into the third stimulus package? As early as this Monday, we could see the language of the third stimulus bill and the language of hazard pay. But how hazard pay works, how is it calculated, how are you eligible, what time sheets are included, what time sheets are not included, and who are the essential workers is answered in this video. In this throwback video, I go over hazard pay and all those big issues like, are Walmart employees covered? Are Costco employees covered? How about places where they sell both groceries and pharmaceuticals? What's covered and what's not covered? Enjoy this overnight LALATE video on hazard pay. If you're too anxious to wait for federal hazard pay, then you should maybe start applying for hazard pay in your state. Hey everybody, this is LALATE with a second stimulus check and stimulus package update today. This one's about hazard pay, that $10,000 bill that proposes to, well, it's more than $10,000, $10,000 for you bill that's proposed part of the HEROES Act that pays essential workers who worked during the pandemic. But today we have exciting, great news, not only about that bill, but versions of it on a state level. Yes, several states have now provided and have now implemented hazard pay on a local level. So you need to be alert right away if your local jurisdiction, whether it's state or city, has a hazard pay, you can get that money right away. Yesterday we detailed Louisiana. Louisiana went live yesterday with a hazard pay bill. The hazard pay bill was very exciting. It paid anyone in the state of Louisiana who worked or is working during the pandemic hazard pay. It had qualifications to it. It said that people could not have made more than, I think it was about $50,000 last year. And the hazard pay grant, this is free money, was I think only a couple $100. So it was certainly not $10,000. It certainly was $1,000. But the great news was that it was for a lot of people. The bill, when approved by Louisiana, identified 200,000 people who qualified for hazard pay in that state. And when the program went live yesterday at 12 midnight, or 1 o'clock in the morning, by 7 a.m., 14,000 people had been paid. That is really great news. What's greater news today is that 2 other states went live, or counties went live, with their hazard pay today as well. So you need to be on alert if your state, county, or local jurisdiction has a hazard pay bill. This is a supplement to the federal hazard pay bill, which I'm getting to in a second. So nothing disqualifies one or the other. If you are in Marietta, Georgia, get ready because you have a hazard pay. The Cobb County Board of Commissioners voted to give temporary hazard pay to people in their state that qualify for hazard pay. It's for people who provided services to residents while the county was on limited operations during the COVID-19 shutdown. This is our way to tell those essential workers that the board recognizes their efforts, said County Manager Dr. Jackie McMorris. How many people got it and how much money? This is really great news. 31 non-managerial workers will receive a $1,000 bonus for hazard pay for working during the pandemic. It ranges from everywhere from public safety workers to water crews to DOT to IS personnel. Really, really exciting. This is Marietta, Georgia. The county expects that more than 1 million of the 3.1 million will be reimbursed by the federal CARES Act. So this is also really good. It's saying that under the CARES Act, they were given money, and that money was supposed to be allocated to local workers who worked essential jobs and should get hazard pay. Wow. So let's recap. When we talk about hazard pay, when this channel has always been talking about hazard pay, we have been talking about the second stimulus check package. We haven't talked about the first stimulus package. But now what counties and states and cities are doing is they are paying out hazard pay to people who worked during the pandemic because of funds they received from the first stimulus package. Can't be any better news than that. Cobb County went on lockdown March 18th, and at their time, only certain employees worked as essential workers. March 27th is when the CARES Act was enacted into law, and the Treasury said that grants should be given as a payroll expense for public safety, similar employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to the COVID-19 health emergency. So wow, this is really great news. What you should do if you're watching this video right now is, as soon as it's done, you should Google hazard pay in your city, county, or state where you work and see whether or not they have a hazard pay bill for you. I did not know of this, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't either. Because when we talk about hazard pay, we talk about the hazard pay bill, the federal one, under the second stimulus package. Did anyone ever mention that there's a hazard pay under the first stimulus package? No. Did anyone say that states and counties were dedicated money to create a hazard pay fund for you under the first stimulus package? I haven't heard it. This is really exciting news. So what you need to do is you need to Google your city or county and type in the word hazard pay and see if anything comes back. And ultimately, a lot of these things are going live just now. Louisiana went live yesterday. Cobb County went live today, or either today or tomorrow. Here's another one, Mississippi. Vicksburg, Mississippi said its firefighters, police officers, and gas department workers will receive a hazard pay that they are owed because of the pandemic. Vicksburg is supposed to receive extra money to those employees while the city remained under COVID-19. The Vicksburg Post reported that the extra payments stopped May 31st, although they were supposed to continue. The city issued a statement that they will get the money that is owed by the CARES Act. Wow. I mean, this is really exciting news. So I'm not going to deter you or disqualify you or not focus you on the hazard pay under the second stimulus package, but I want you to understand that you may also be eligible to for hazard pay under the first stimulus package. So let's go to the hazard pay bill itself. Boy, I got to tell you, Monday or Tuesday is really going to be exciting news about hazard pay because we are going to see the hot air coming from both directions. You have the Republicans and the Democrats, and we know currently the Democrats want to give you hazard pay. The Republicans, we just don't know. We just don't know. The Republicans have talked about almost everything else in the second stimulus package. But when we come to hazard pay, they are literally like running for the door every time someone asks them a question about it. Mitch McConnell's who I'm referring to, and Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary and the head of the Senate. You know, they have not been asked about hazard pay that much. And when asked about the second stimulus package, they just don't bring it up either. So what is going on with the Republicans and the hazard pay? We don't know yet, but come Monday, we may likely know then what's going on. So let me go over the details with you. Basically, yesterday I reported that Steve Mnuchin and Mitch McConnell have been working on their second stimulus package for several weeks, and that on Monday they will release it to press. If not Monday, then Tuesday or Wednesday, release it to press. They'll then introduce it as a bill to the Senate later in July. It doesn't become a bill if it's approved by the Senate because it has to go to the House then, Nancy's house, where ultimately the Democrats will, cut and paste a lot, chop it apart. So we don't know currently if the Republicans are going to even have a hazard pay bill. We don't know it. So we're going to find out next week. What we do know is that the Democrats do have a hazard pay bill. How much is it? Where would it go? Where would the funds be allocated? Who would get the money? It's really great news. It's exciting news. There's only one part of the bill I don't like, and you know which part that is. So let's get right to it. The hazard pay bill proposes to pay $10,000 per person, up to $10,000, and there's different calculations for that. Let me tell you how much it is and how much you qualify for so you're informed and educated. All right. First, you need to know how much you made in 2019. If you made $100,000 or less, you are eligible up to $10,000 for hazard pay. If you made more than $100,000 in 2019, you're only eligible up to $5,000 for hazard pay. How much is the hazard pay? Well, it's calculated the following. It is calculated based upon $13 an hour times the number of hours you worked as an essential worker during the pandemic from the January to the present going forward. Pretty simple. It includes hourly and includes overtime. It includes both. Viewers of this channel who are independent contractors who work on per gig, on a gig job or a job basis, I don't know how they're going to deal with it. Ultimately, you may have to submit timesheets that show how many hours you worked to do the job that you were paid on a per job basis. I don't know. We haven't seen that answer provided to us by the Democrats. If you don't reach the thresholds based upon what I just described to you, if you don't make the $10,000 or $5,000, you're only at $2,000, no worry. You would get get that money. And then going forward, you would get $13 an hour until the pandemic settles down. You would qualify for this money if you're laid off, fired, furloughed. You're also qualified for the money if you have multiple essential worker jobs. The bill then also defines what essential workers are. And this is what's so important, especially in the context of today's video. As you saw, the Mississippi town, Vicksburg, they only are giving the hazard pay to city employees. The Cobb County one, in Georgia, they included more workers. The one yesterday for Louisiana included both private and public workers. So there's different ways that they're doing this essential worker money. And what's important to understand is that the essential worker money can use different definitions based upon different payments. So, for example, you may be not, I just butchered that word, you may not be an essential worker for a state purpose, but under a federal purpose, you may be. The federal law, the HEROES Act, which concludes the HEROES Fund, where the hazard pay is mentioned, defines what essential workers are. It goes through those definitions. What's great news for you is that if it's not clear, it actually says, hey, maybe we're not clear. We want you and the employer and Congress to make it clear. They freely admit that maybe it's not particularly clear. Well, guess what? It's not clear in some places. It's just not clear. It needs to be cleared up. Those are the gray areas, which I'll get to in a second. For those of you who read the essential workers bill and see, hey, I'm clearly an essential worker. I'm clearly a dentist. I clearly worked at a grocery store. I clearly worked warehouses. I clearly worked as an Uber Lyft driver. I clearly worked. These are all black and white, very clearly defined essential worker jobs. I'll go through them again right now. Grocery stores, pharmacists, warehouse, delivery services, car services, Uber, Lyft, taxis, shuttle buses, aerospace, anything medical related, all that is clearly defined in the bill as essential workers. The ones that aren't clear, the gray areas under this hazard pay bill, are the ones that concern places that involve a lot of different tasks. Walmart, Costco, CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, where there's a lot of things going on in the store. It's just not clear. And that's where I'm saying to you, hey, I don't have an answer for it, but the bill does say the payments are not supposed to be restrictive. We're not going to eliminate a lot of people from the bill. We want to include more people for the bill. So where does this land? I don't know. What we have here is, for example, with Walmart, there's a pharmacy in Walmart. The pharmacy qualifies. There's groceries sold in Walmart, but Walmart is not a grocery store. Walmart is a general retail store that happens to have a grocery store in it. Will Walmart say all its employees are hazard pay essential workers? I don't know. And last, the bad part of the bill. And you know what this is because I've said it before. The bad part of the bill is who applies for you. Under a hazard pay bill, it says that the employer must apply for hazard pay for you. So what that does is says, did I just say that wrong? Let me just repeat that. That has the employer shall apply for you. Not that they must, but they shall. If they don't apply for you, there's no recourse. And they don't have to apply for you as well. That's the part of the bill I can't stand. I'm not going to mince my words about it. Why are we leaving an employer to decide whether or not to apply for you or not? And why are we not requiring the employer to apply for you as well? It doesn't make sense. Ultimately, employers may not apply for you if they simply just don't want to. Mitt Romney has a bill, and this is why I talk about these different bodies of Congress, House and Senate, bringing multiple bills together and pushing them together. Perhaps Mitt Romney's bill will be merged with the HEROES Act. Mitt Romney's bill proposes to do hazard pay as well. The calculation is a little bit different. I think it's $12 an hour, so $13 an hour, but it allocates money to pay the employers to actually pay you hazard pay, requires them to do hazard pay, requires them to apply for hazard pay, and requires them to pay you hazard pay with federal funds. It makes a lot more sense. Coming up later today, big developments on PUA, FPUC, and UI. Renters assistance as well. Huge developments. Then we answer your questions about this check itself, second stimulus check and SSDI, railroad benefits, and finally EIDL. Boy, we've been doing really big wonders for EIDL. We've been getting all these people hundreds of thousands of dollars every few hours since Friday. We got 3 people, approximately $150,000 on Monday. We got 3 people EIDL loans yesterday. And at the time of this recording, I've already gotten another person this morning an EIDL loan approved. It is just great news. As always, stay focused, stay motivated, and stay smiling. And as always, stay with LALATE for more.